Shaun Rylee is an award-winning actress, screenwriter, director and filmmaker. She has been featured on such shows as Mad Men, Community, Scandal, Hello Ladies, Parks and Recreation, Californication and HBO's Newsroom, as well as a handful of hip-hop music videos. In the award-winning short, Laboratory Conditions, she served as a body double and stand-in for Marissa Tomei, and had roles in the festival-winning feature Damn Foreigners and scientific thriller Transcendence, her third film that starred Johnny Depp. As an independent filmmaker, Shaun Rylee creates within the drama, thriller, romantic, and experimental genres. In the upcoming features, Better and Volume at Nocturne, she serves as producer and co-star, both projects in which she wrote based on actual events from her life. Together, her films have earned 122 awards. We hope you enjoy finding out more about Shaun.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for another interview session with Cult of Odd, and with me this time, my guest is Shaun Rylee. Shaun Rylee is an independent filmmaker. She's also an actress and model, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Yeah, in my younger years, sure.
How you doing today, Shaun?
I'm well. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm on the wrong end of a very long turnover. I'm up till 4 o'clock in the morning most of the time on Fridays and back
That's
up
fair.
at 10. So
Living the dream.
yeah, waking nightmares sometimes I think is the the best way to
Yes.
go about it. All right, so most people, unless they're like big into the independent film scene and whatnot, I'm going to assume probably will not know who you are by name, but some of your credits here, they will. You've been in quite a bit of stuff that has been pretty popular, but I want to talk specifically about your short films and your work first, because I feel that that's more important than like, oh yeah, I was in this with so and so. That feels more disingenuous about you than it would be like, well, what was it like working with so and so? So you sent me 2 of your short films. Tell me
Yes.
a little bit about both of them.
Okay, so first we filmed Question Everything during the height of the pandemic. And so we had obviously challenges with filming on a set and having, limited people and distancing, all that stuff. So what I did was I created a work where we could film out in the desert. And it just happened to be a heat wave in Southern California at the time. We filmed by the Salton Sea, and it was 117. And now I was not anticipating that the day before. It wasn't supposed to be 117, but it was. And so it's based on lucid dreaming and the ability to change what happens in your dream. So what if you could tandem lucidly dream with someone else and you have the same dream at the same time? What would happen? So that's what that film is based around, and changing the ending of the original dream. And then You Don't Deserve This is more of a personal story about the art of communication, but also the lack of resolution. So maybe if somebody would like ghost you, for example, or you just have a relationship that doesn't quite tie up in a tidy little bow, and you don't quite know where things stand with the other person. So that's what You Don't Deserve This is about.
Well, I want to talk about lucid dreaming in a little bit there with the first one. I have this weird concept that soulmates do exist, and like, because I'm a big comic book nerd, of course, I believe in alternate realities and all that stuff. And I have this weird theory that we're tied to the reality that we live in because of our connections to our soulmates, and that when we dream, we kind of shift a little bit. And so, like, being able to lucid dream with your partner or somebody, is essentially what kind of happens. That's how you stay tethered to the reality that you're in. So, like I said, I wasn't going to say this, but I didn't understand both of the short films until after I read your bio.
Yes.
So I haven't had anyone make me feel dumb in a while, so thank you for that.
I do, and I didn't want to make you feel dumb when we were having that conversation, but I always say that I write for very smart audiences.
No, I think it was context. I think I went into it like, it smacked me like some of like the like college art films.
Mhm.
Like it smacked me hard, and I was like, what I sat down to expect, a narrative that I was familiar with, and got a narrative that was very well done, but not one that I was familiar with. And so I'm just kind of sitting there like, all right, either they didn't do their job, or I'm really friggin' dumb. I'm not sure which one it is right now.
Well, the funny thing is, when you were just describing lucid dreaming and soulmates, you actually got to question everything. You just didn't know it when you watched it. But the way you described it, I'm like, yes, you got exactly. So you did get it. You just didn't realize it.
Well, like I said, because like in your bio, it states that your whole intent is to honor the art on screen by telling stories of a psychological nature and social issues through complex voices that get to the heart of gritty realism, but do so or poetically.
Yes.
And again, I read your bio after I watched your short films because of how things came through. And once I read that, I was like, oh, I get it. I understand.
Yeah. And I don't know if you're familiar with Maya Deren. She's an experimental filmmaker, or was rather. And she was more popular like in the 1960s. And my style is very similar to hers, but a little bit more exposition in my narratives than she puts in her experimental films.
Now, you do have a degree in psychology, correct?
Yes, I
And
do.
so that gives you the weight to be able to talk about and talk like you do through your films.
Yes, and a lot of filmmakers that I talk to, they always talk about how they want to do something psychological, or I'll read their screenplays and they'll say, "Hey, this is psychologically based," but they don't have the same background, which isn't their fault, but it's obvious when somebody doesn't do their research either, or speak to somebody who has trained in the field, because I think it's important to accurately portray it as well.
Yeah, and like that was the "you don't deserve this" is the
Mhm.
the second one, and the feelings of inadequacy and fear and longing for some sort of resolution. Those came screaming through.
Yes.
Um, and I've worked in the psychology field. I've worked in a hospital. I've worked in psych and substance, and dealt with people who have unresolved issues of a myriad of avenues. And I will say I did understand that one better, because there was a lot of key things that I could identify.
Yes. Yes. And I think that one is a little more relatable because it's more of a tangible thing than question everything. Question everything's kind of like a very surreal, dream-like thing. I mean, literally, but you don't deserve this was definitely supposed to be psychologically rooted in certain feelings.
And maybe it's my own you know perception of it, but they felt like they might have been tied together somehow.
Yeah, so that's my plan, is to create like a series of shorts that tie to being filmed in Bombay Beach, which is where I filmed half of You Don't Deserve This, but all of Question Everything. And just the desert itself is kind of mysterious, and it just has a certain thing to it. And I'm very drawn to that, which is why I live in the desert. But I like to keep my films rooted here. So I try to tie the short films together. The features are a whole different thing, but yeah, it is definitely a series.
Having lived in Tucson, I understand that the desert is both desolate and feels crowded at the exact same time, and it's a very weird thing.
Yes.
There's nothing around, but there feels like there's everything around.
Yeah, you're right.
So, and the you had yourself, if I'm not mistaken, right? You were the actress in both shorts,
I
correct?
was, yes.
And both male leads were very similar, so I think those are the things that kind of drew me a little bit, as they were both good looking and strong characters. And I think I was sitting there like, are these like, is this actress or this character just having a really bad go of things for a little bit? Because like I said, they felt connected.
Yeah, I kind of want to, well, in all of my films, even in my features, I want to tap into more of an emotional side for the male characters, something you don't often see on screen. We're
Men
used
have
to the
emotions.
yeah, exactly. We're used to like the tough machismo stereotypes, and everyone wants to be Tom Cruise or whoever in the action films. And so I kind of want a challenge for my actors, but also I want audiences to be able to resonate, because people do have feelings, whether you want to admit it or not. Outwardly, we all have feelings, and you don't deserve this. He's struggling with what he feels internally and not showing the emotion. That's the whole point, is that he's not displaying outwardly what he's actually feeling, but you can feel it from him.
Well, and there's something to be said too for a very strong female lead. Like, in both of the shorts that I watched, your female lead, you're carrying everything,
Yes.
and the man is there as more of a set piece almost for you to be able to express your emotions and thoughts, or the character's emotions and thoughts off of. And like, you don't see that a lot.
Yes.
And I like that, because
you got it. Yeah, that's kind of my thing, is I want to create those females where, we do still have emotions too, but I want to show kind of like a transition between where my character starts in a film and where the character ends. Obviously, that's the goal for writers and actors, what draws them to screenplays as well. But I want to make sure it's very clear that I'm going on a journey, and I'm not going to stay at one level. I'm not just going to be emotional, even though I cry something like 3 to 5 times, and you don't deserve this, I don't remember, but I cry a lot of times in that film. But, my character is different at the end.
I'm going to assume too that both were very personal stories.
Yes. And it's funny, but I think the reason that you understood that they were tied together is because the same person is kind of the muse in both.
Okay.
Behind the actual writing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So as creating a strong female character and letting men take the back seat once in a while, I want to ask, and you can feel free to completely deflect from this question, because I don't know how you feel, but as a female in what is normally a male dominated arena, do you find it difficult to tell the stories of merit versus what they expect you to tell?
That's a really good question. So, I think the process behind it, I think it's difficult. Like, is this going to reach males in a way that they're going to understand and respect what I do? That's what I think during the process. But the funny thing is, especially with my screenplays, when I bring in beta readers, I always bring in male beta readers first, because I want to see how my writing of male characters comes across to them. And the funny thing is, they always seem to get my art a little bit more than the female beta readers, which is kind of hilarious, but that's exactly the goal, is I want to reach people you wouldn't expect. And in this case, even though in the shorts, the male characters are a little less highlighted than my character, they still reach the people that they're supposed to, if that makes sense.
Well, yeah. Well, and it makes sense too that they're less highlighted, because this is very, very much in both of the shorts that I saw a woman's story. This is, even though men can resonate with it, this is something that women go through on a regular basis. Feelings of inadequacy, fear of rejection, fear of just men's behavior in general.
Right.
And but the thing is whether guys are open-minded and evolved enough to be able to admit it, we get ghosted. We often are left with unresolved issues at the end of a relationship too. We tend to stuff them down and act like everything's okay, whereas women get a good cry out and then they go on about their business.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. I actually don't like crying, by the way. I feel terrible the next day. So I try not to cry, only on film. That's my time to shine.
I'm getting paid to cry. I don't mind feeling bad tomorrow.
Yes, that's one of my special skills.
All right, so you've been featured in a bunch of different TV shows and stuff and movies as well, correct?
Yeah, a lot that aren't listed as well, but I used to act under a different name, to be fair, so my credits didn't accurately translate over, and that's fine. I could just be person two in my credits if I want to. I'd rather not, go into my former self, if you will. So, but yes.
That's fine. I was going to talk about some of the shows, but we'll move right on.
No, you can talk about the shows, absolutely.
Well, it's funny because like I just recently started rewatching Community, and of course, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, Community is funny because I think when it first aired on television, there was a certain edit, and then I find in streaming there's a different edit. I don't know if that makes sense, but I also went into filming Community. Originally, I was just like a random student at Greendale, but my character evolved a little bit, if you want to call it a character. In the streaming, I found some of the scenes were not the same. So when I went into filming, I thought I was filming a certain season. I actually ended up filming 3 seasons of Community, and I didn't even know it until it was final, the final edits.
That's fun.
Yeah, so it was a surprise, and that's great because then it caused me to watch it.
Well, now I'm gonna. I like I said, I just restarted it. I think I'm on episode 2 or 3, but now I'm gonna sit there and see if we can spot Shaun.
Yeah, I don't think I come in until maybe season 3, I want to say.
My very own personal game of Where's Waldo.
Yeah, right. I'm in 3 seasons somewhere. But I remember we shot an episode about the grand opening of Shirley's Sandwiches. And I believe that was originally, and I don't want to say something inaccurate, but I believe that originally was one episode and they tied it into another one. I believe they tied it into another episode that I filmed. And so I think they cut it out purposely because some of it didn't make sense when they combined it.
It's Community. Most of it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, but it was a great experience. It was like not even work. You know what I mean? It was going to hang out with some friends.
You've also been on Scandal, Hello Ladies, Parks and Recreation, and Californication, right?
Yes, I have.
Parks and Rec was about the only other one on there that I actually watched.
Okay, and I haven't actually seen my episodes.
Oh. Well, then we have a wealth of information to ignore on that one.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if you see an episode where I'm screaming in Amy Poehler's face, please let me know what episode it is because I can't figure it out. So I didn't really watch that show, just episodes. Yeah, there you go. Just text it to me.
And then you also started a film with Johnny Depp, correct?
I have been in 3 Johnny Depp projects.
Really?
I believe only The Lone Ranger is listed on that. Or no, I'm sorry. Transcendence is the one listed, isn't it?
Actually, all 3 are mentioned, only 2 of them by name.
Okay. Yes, the third one's a mystery. You'll have to find me sometime.
Are we looking for Shaun Rylee or a person number 2?
I'm trying to think of what the third one even is. I'm so used to saying it was 3, and I know it was 3, but I can't remember what the third one is. That's so terrible. It's so terrible. But the funny thing is the 2 that are listed are projects a lot of people don't like of his, which is interesting. Have you seen Transcendence or The Lone Ranger?
I saw The Lone Ranger. It was all right. Like it could. I don't know. Like whenever they go back and try to breathe new life into old TV shows and stuff like that, or try to like adapt a TV show to make it a movie, I feel it 9 times out of 10 falls flat.
Sure.
Because they miss the getting to the heart of what the original content had, and I think that's because the original content had so many episodes to build and show that heart.
Yeah.
Whereas a movie, you're relegated to maybe 90 minutes if you're lucky.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. You have to, in filmmaking, you have to be able to accurately tell a story in a short amount of time. And that's something a lot of people don't realize when they set out to write screenplays. They think, oh, I can tell stories, right? But can they really tell them effectively?
Now, Johnny Depp played Tonto, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
And I remember I can't even tell you who the actor that played the Lone Ranger was, let alone the only thing I remember is I didn't like him.
It was Army Hammer.
Yeah, I didn't like him. Like I've seen Army Hammer and other things where I have liked him, but I did not like him in the Lone Ranger. I did not like the Lone Ranger as a character. I just, and I think that's a big part of it too, is like when you're casting these movies, when you're trying to kick up the dust of someone's childhood, you have to make smart choices in your casting.
Yeah, I agree.
So what is Better?
Oh gosh, Better is the project that I am, well, it seems like I'm forever working on. I'm actively working on it right now with my producers and making sure that it goes into production soon. And that's also based on events from my actual life, that my lucid dreaming abilities in real life actually took a bunch of events and put them together into a full screenplay. So I remember when I dreamt the thing and kind of relived some of the events, I woke up the next day and I was like, that was completely cinematic. I need to put it down. So I started typing it up. And back then I only had Microsoft Word. I didn't have proper screenwriting software because I didn't plan to become a screenwriter. And this was like, oh gosh, 12 years ago. So I started writing it in Word and kind of screenplay format. And then eventually I was like, no, I should become a screenwriter. And then, bought the software and all that. But anyway, it's very much rooted in mental health, that film, because I feel that's still very much a taboo, not just in society, but even in film. I feel it's portrayed in certain ways where it's either they're going into, the therapist office and doing the armchair session, as I like to say. You see that in film oftentimes, or you see maybe things like 13 Reasons Why, where it deals with bullying and how that affects people. But I thought, what about the 30-somethings? There's not a lot of stories for us. It kind of jumps from high school, college party time, and then it jumps to like unhappy adults with children, which is not everybody, right? So I still think it's important to address our mental health in our 30s, as well as accept the fact that people can still fall in love in their 30s as well. So that's kind of what that film is centered around.
Well, and you're right, because they usually use coming of age to tell mental health stories,
Yes, and I hate that term. Coming of age. Everything's coming of age.
Well, the thing that the Hollywood doesn't seem to realize is it doesn't matter whether you're 16, 26, 36, or 46, you can still be coming of age,
Right.
Like that's a big thing that we talk about on the show normally, is personal growth and how it should never stop.
Yes.
And that, you're supposed to change, you're supposed to grow. Your mindset isn't supposed to be set in stone for anything. That when you're presented with new information, you're supposed to analyze it. And if it doesn't jive with your worldview needs to change.
Mm-hmm.
And
absolutely.
Mental health, you're right, is very much a taboo subject still. And, we need art and ways to palatably talk about the issues that are going on, not only in the world itself, but with our own individual selves. Again, going back to men don't like to deal with their emotions. It's there are certain things that society has deemed for both men and women unacceptable, things that we don't talk about, things that you're supposed to be ashamed of. And speaking as someone who deals with depression, anxiety, I have my bipolar moments where I'm super manic and really productive, and then those moments where you're on the flip side of that and you can't manage to get yourself out of bed for a day and a half to 2 days because the world feels too heavy.
Sure.
And we don't get a lot of that told to us. It's usually, oh, well, you have this teenager who's gay, and that's how they choose to tell a mental health story.
Right.
Or you have Stella trying to get her groove back, and that's how they choose to tell a mental health story. But there is so much between those 2 points that doesn't get expressed. And hell, just show me a story where someone is actively trying to have good mental health, like taking those self-care times, building a good regimen. Like, it may be boring as hell to watch on the screen, but damn it, we need to see it.
That's funny you mention it that way, because the opening to Better starts with his regimen, right? That, like you said, it could be boring to some people, but it's going to resonate to a lot of people, because we don't all live in a fantasy land. Not everything is going to end up a certain way or progress a certain way. And that's why I feel this story is super important. Yeah, in the beginning, when I started sending the screenplay out to other producers and such, they did want changes, and it's taking a lot longer because I put my foot down and I said, no, this is a story that people do want to see. I have actually done my market research, and I have talked to people, what would you like to see on screen? And this is it. They don't all want to see superhero films, to each their own if you do, but you don't always want to see only superhero films, right? You want to see real things.
Right. Or at least if they're going to give us nothing but superhero films, start telling these stories through them too.
Exactly.
So I'm going to probably butcher the name of this next one, so forgive me. I'm going to do my best. Don't
I think
say
I know
it.
Which one it is.
Yeah, don't say it, because I want to attempt to say it.
Sure.
Vol et Nocturne.
You're close. It's French.
Yeah, well, I got a stupid American tongue. Leave me alone.
It's Volet Nocturne.
Volet Nocturne.
Yeah, no hard T. Yeah, Volet Nocturne.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Tell me about that.
I am super excited about that one because I feel it's actually my best writing, but I wrote it to take place here in Las Vegas, inspired by actual events I went through as a flight attendant, where I was almost human trafficked. And so I decided to take the idea of human trafficking and how it's usually told, and I turned it to a different perspective, because usually when you see human trafficking or sex trafficking stories on film, it tends to show, the how do I want to say this accurately? It kind of shows the victims in a certain light, right? It kind of targets certain demographics, whereas I want to show it can happen to anybody. It can happen in unexpected situations. That's what I was trying to get at. But here in Las Vegas, for anyone who has visited, if you go into a casino and in a restroom, on the back of the door, there's always a human trafficking hotline number. And so that right there is telling you it's a very prevalent thing. And it's not just here in Las Vegas. I just happen to use Las Vegas as kind of a character in my story, because it's a city where people are always excited to come here, which I love. But, we have our stories too. We're like any other city. We're not just gambling. We're not just party nightlife. I don't even take part in any of that kind of thing myself, but we have real humans that live here with real stories too. So I want to show in that film kind of what would happen in a scenario where this person who is educated on human trafficking, because flight attendants are trained to spot that, what happens if they end up in kind of an iffy situation that could go wrong.
Interesting. Yeah, you're right. Anywhere that has a hub, essentially like a business and traffic hub, is more than likely got its fair share of human trafficking going on. I personally, I live near Detroit, and there are tons of stories and cases that you see every year about either someone thought that they might have been being groomed for trafficking, or people have disappeared and they are suspected. It's really prevalent in the areas like in Vegas and Arizona and Texas and whatnot, those border states where it's real easy to just make someone disappear in the cover of night. Especially like a town like Vegas, where you're known for partying, and what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. And, so it's scary out there to realize, because like if you look back, because say I'm going to be 40 next month. And if I look back to like the 80s and growing up, there wasn't all this information out there. you know, and everyone's like, oh, things have gotten so much worse. And I was like, I don't think that they've gotten worse. I think we've gotten just more aware of what was taking place.
Yeah, especially with the internet. We didn't have that, way back. I don't want to age us, but back in the day, we didn't have
back in my day.
Yeah, I know. I always hate making those comments because we're like, "What? You're not 22?" Oh,
if anyone confuses me for 22, they should have their head examined.
Look, I played an 18-year-old when I was not 18, so on TV, so anything is possible. But yeah, we have, this plethora of information, and more people are able to tap into that. Maybe not everybody has the internet, but generally speaking, especially in our society, people have access to that kind of information now. So you're right. I don't think that these things weren't prevalent back then. It's just, it's more highlighted and elevated now because you can talk about it on so many different platforms. You can get your information from so many different platforms. Google, for example, you can just get any information that you need.
Visibility is both a blessing and a curse because on the one hand, you're aware of what's going on and you know what to look for. On the other hand, Jesus Christ, it makes the world seem so damn scary.
Right. Yeah, I can't imagine growing up in the age of the internet boom. Yeah, I had the internet growing up, but it wasn't, we didn't have social media. We had chat rooms, which were kind of scary too when you think about it. I mean, that's also a trafficking avenue as well. And there's great organizations where you can get information about human trafficking, like ourrescue.org, for example. They put out great information, things that people maybe didn't have access to before, and now they are able to highlight that on different platforms. So it can be a blessing.
Yeah, resources and help are key, and knowing how and where to get them is even better.
Yes.
So I know before the interview we talked about if I ask a question, you have no issues of being like, no, I don't want to talk about that. And you made it very clear that you weren't interested in talking about a lot of previous life and, whatnot. I am going to eagerly await the French titled movie because I really do want to know more about that. But I feel that if I ask you about it, it'll be like, nah, we're moving on.
Oh no, it's I mean, this actually, the real events that it's inspired by happened only 5 years ago. They weren't even that long ago. But is that the story that you're referring to?
I kind of want to know more.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't have any problem talking about that. So I was a flight attendant for a very brief period of time in my life, when I didn't think that making films was going to be feasible. And I set off on that journey. And I remember I worked all the time. I was on long trips, with another long trip right after it. And I got like 48 hours off one time. I got 48 hours off in a row. And I said, where can I go being based in San Francisco in a short amount of time where I can make like a productive trip and feel like I went somewhere and did something. And so I had been to Las Vegas before I moved here many, many times. And so, I feel comfortable in Las Vegas. I'll fly there. And this was when Hard Rock was still standing, which it is not now, the hotel. So I stayed there. I decided I was going to make a whole thing of it. I got like free tickets to see the Backstreet Boys at Planet Hollywood. Like it was great, So I set off on my solo journey. I remember the shuttle bus from the Hard Rock took us to the Fashion Show Mall, which is at the north end of the strip. And where I needed to get to, Planet Hollywood, is more the central end. And so I decided I was going to walk, and, wherever my journey took me is what it was. But by the time I got to Cosmopolitan, which is kind of across from Planet Hollywood, my feet were tired because there's a lot of walking in Vegas. People don't realize the strip is something like 6 miles long. It's really long.
We can see it behind you.
Yeah, exactly. It looks like everything's closed, but it's not. Everything's ginormous. So yeah, by the time I got to, I don't even know where it is on here, honestly, but by the time I got to the Cosmopolitan, I had to rest my feet. So there's not a lot of sitting in Las Vegas. I don't know if you've been here, but okay, if you're on the strip, they like to keep you moving, right? Unless you're sitting in a chair gambling. So they don't like people just sitting around taking up space and whatnot. So I happened to find a seat in the Cosmopolitan, and I feel bad singling out this hotel because I'm not saying this is where all this stuff happens, just to be clear.
It's not their fault that it happened. It's just where it happened.
Yeah, it just happened to be where this took place. And I was sitting down, and I remember a gal sat next to me first. She ended up stealing my sunglasses without me even realizing, right next to me. And I was live streaming on Facebook, and I'm like, look, I'm in Las Vegas on my little vacation, you know, here's what it looks like, blah, blah, blah. Then I put my phone down, and a man in a suit approached me. Now, Cosmopolitan has kind of a really cool, swanky vibe to it. So seeing people in suits is like, you know, no big deal. But I remember he propositioned me in a way that I buried into my subconscious, but a way that I knew it was a human trafficking situation, because I had just come out of flight training not long before. And so I was like, no, I'm good. And I bring my phone up to live stream, and he's, you know, scurries away. This happened 3 separate times. And I started to get really worried because I still had to get to the Backstreet Boys across the street, right? And so I started to get worried as to how I could make it over there by myself and not put myself in a situation that could be dangerous. And I never feel scared in Las Vegas. I just want to clarify, it is a very safe city. But this particular situation, I happened to spot security not too far away, because I was actually by the front desk. So it just happened right out in the open. And I kind of got into a crowd of people. I got to security. I told them about it. And it was like they knew this kind of thing happens. And so I wanted to create a story around that, because anyone that's not aware, if somebody approaches you in Las Vegas and you're here having a good time and whatnot, like, you may not be aware of what the situation really is. And it's not to say every situation is going to end up like that, but you need to be careful with your dealings with people on vacation anywhere. But, you know, I can speak particularly to Las Vegas because I live here. But, you know, you meet all kinds of strangers all the time. So you just have to be very aware of your surroundings.
Recognize the red flags.
Yes, exactly.
Well, I'm glad that, one, I'm glad that nothing bad happened. I'm glad that you were aware, but I'm also glad that it gave you something to write the story about, because I feel that this is going to be a fairly important thing that, you know, most people should watch, just for the information and the knowledge that's going to be imparted throughout the course of the movie.
Yeah, because
or film, I should say.
Yeah, I feel that when you do see trafficking stories, and they aren't super prevalent, but you see them often on TV shows. I can't even name all those shows because I don't watch them, but there's the one with Mariska Hargitay. Do you know what show I'm talking about?
Yeah, okay. That's Law and Order, SVU.
Oh, okay, I was going to say that. Okay, so Law and Order, yes. So shows like that highlight situations like this, but they often, from what I've seen, they usually show them like the border situation, or like they target, you know, people from certain demographics or economic status, right? So I wanted to show that it doesn't only happen to those people. And I think that's something important to note, is it can happen to anybody. It can happen to not even just females. It can happen to any gender, any class, it doesn't matter. And so I feel it's important because it's told from a point of view, which you will see when the film comes out, that you don't often see. And the funny thing is, I had beta readers early on, and one of them actually tried to copy my story. Something you're told never happens in film. It does happen. And I was like, wait a minute, why are you telling this story? This actually happened to me. And they're telling it also from a female perspective. So I thought that was kind of strange, but people want the story, I guess.
See, the thing that I've come to realize, and we were actually just talking about this on my show last night, because we were talking about Dave Chappelle and how society has come to a point now where we might be a little too soft on certain things. I think what people have forgotten is that film and comedy and, you know, writing and like books and stuff like that, they're forms of art, and art's main job is to make you feel, period. It's not to make you feel good. It's not to make you feel bad. It's just, period, to make you feel. And we learn from those feelings because like I had said when we got talking about the Chew shorts, is the point seems to be that once you start feeling that way, now you have to internalize and address, why do I feel that way? And that is how we expand the consciousness of our society as a whole, is making them question their stances on things and why they feel certain ways about certain subjects.
Yeah, everything's filtered through not only your experience, but also what you're going through that day too. So I think that's, you're right. It's very important to realize that it's going to hit different people differently, but it isn't the artist's fault. You also have to address why you are seeing it the way that you are too.
Now, I've been seeing your posts on Facebook. You've been nominated and won quite a few awards recently, right?
It's been a good past couple of years. Yes, I did what I could during the lockdown time, and now I'm just watching, the art being able to be seen all over the world, which is great.
The fruits of your labor.
That's right.
I got a weird question for you, though.
Sure.
I've been sitting here staring at you, and I notice you have a meat cleaver as a charm on a necklace. Why?
Yes. I was wondering if you're going to notice that, because when I go in public, people notice it all the time. And I have a little Nevada you can't really see very well. But...
Yeah, I was trying to figure out what that was. I thought it might be like a hair comb or a brush or something like that, but the meat cleaver stood out.
Yeah, I bought this in Boulder City at a little tourist shop, but super cute. But yeah, this one is actually an artist I worked with on both. I used to book him as a solo artist on the Warped Tour back in the day, and now he has gone through his musical career. Now he has a cosmetics career, and this is from his line. But it's interesting. It makes a statement because I'm also vegan too, and so I kind of think of it as a little conversation piece.
But you gotta chop vegetables too.
That's right. Exactly. I don't have a meat cleaver, obviously, but a butcher knife is also a bad name, but that's what I use. A vegetable knife.
I have a friend of mine who is also vegan, and I tease him every so often just because he's very militant about it.
Like, okay, sure.
Like he's like, screw you, if you eat meat, you're just terrible. And I'm like, well, I only eat meat sometimes. Like I'm working on it. I'm working that way. Leave me alone. And so like I'll tease him and be like, you realize grass feels pain, right? That scent of grass that you smell when you cut your grass. And he's like, yeah. I was like, that's them alerting all the other blades of grass and plants that they've just been injured. And I was like, they have a nervous system. It's
I
their
don't
roots.
think I've heard that one.
But I do it just to mess with him. We
hear everything. Believe me, we hear everything.
Yeah, I have nothing against the vegans. It's just he's so militant about it that I'm one of those people. Like, I don't care what you believe. If you want to believe it, more power to you. If you want to not eat meat and you want to try to save the animals, great. That's wonderful. I think it's a noble cause, but like, don't cram it down my throat, man.
Yeah, the funny thing is people are pretty respectful when they know that I'm vegan, and they actually ask me, is it okay if I eat this in front of you? Like, that's your life. I don't want to tell other people what to do with their lives. And I don't want to be a hypocrite too, because if you think about many different social issues, obviously we won't go into all those topics, but people are free to live their lives how they choose. I may not agree. And I would like for people to come around and maybe consume less or eventually none, but I don't put that on. I have my ways of how I go about it. I don't have that conversation unless people want to have that conversation.
Well, I mean, we're omnivores, realistically, humans. And if we had more fruits and vegetables in our diet, we probably would have less health issues than what we have. But that's to be said, we can't, I don't think we should cut it out completely, but I do think there should be a better way. Sure. In fact, we were just talking last night. It's weird how many things from last night are coming up again today. We were talking about the lab grown meat, how my co-host just doesn't trust it. He's like, nope, never going to eat a lab grown steak. And I'm like, well, at least no animals died. And he's like, I don't even care that the animals died. You're not playing mad scientist with my food. And I went, I'm just gonna let you have that one. I'm not.
Yeah, yeah. You don't know what happens to your food that's not lab grown. So,
Just,
all
all
kinds
right.
yeah, but it's funny to speak to that point of view, but maybe differently. Some of it tastes oddly what I remember of meat way back in my childhood. It tastes very similar, and so I question sometimes, did a restaurant give me the right one?
Right.
It's hard to tell.
Well,
so
like,
I try not to do meat substitutes. Right. I try to just make sure I get the correct nutrients, proteins, and such.
Burger King came out with the Impossible Whopper, and I'm like, that's great, but you're still cooking it on the same grill that you're cooking the regular Whopper on.
Yeah.
So like, there's going to be cross contamination.
Sad but true.
And then there's a guy I follow on TikTok that was talking, got upset that the Impossible Whopper now has actual bacon that you can get on it. And he was like, what sense does that make? And I was like, okay. It was one of the ones that I actually duetted. I was like, I can explain this one. I was like, I can't eat beef. I get violently sick for like 3 days if I eat beef, especially if I eat it in succession.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't eat beef anymore, but I still do enjoy the taste of a hamburger. So the Impossible Whopper, or even like the plant-based burgers and stuff that exist, those help fill that void. But I can eat bacon perfectly fine. I'm not doing it because like I'm trying to save the animals. I'm doing it so I don't wind up on the toilet for 3 days.
Yeah, people don't realize also that those products aren't necessarily to reach vegans.
Yeah.
It's to give other options to meat eaters, if you will, and not necessarily, I don't want to use the word to convert, because that's not the goal.
Oh,
either,
it's working.
Yeah. But yeah, it gives different options. I have allergies to different foods. I'm allergic to onions, highly allergic to onions. I've had many bad experiences on sets that have had onions in the vicinity. My old roommate can attest to saving my life a couple times on set. So yeah, it gives people different dietary options that maybe some people can't consume soy. There's something for everybody now. So that's the great part.
I will tell you this though, the best damn burger that I think I've ever had was a black bean burger.
Yes, I was going to say that. That's usually what I recommend to people when they want to try one. I recommend that, or Beyond burgers, way better than Impossible in my opinion.
We do the Beyond and the black bean burgers in my house.
There you go.
And also too, different brands seem to be better for different things.
Yep.
My wife got Gardein at one point.
It's my favorite.
And it is perfect for like tacos or nachos or stuff because it crumbles nicely and it's got a little bit of a crispiness to it when you cook it up. I'm like, yeah. She's as you can tell, I'm a big dude, and like I said, I'm getting into my 40s next month, and so she's 10 years younger than me, and so she's constantly, like, you need to take better care of yourself, you need to eat better, you need to do this, meat's not doing anything good for you, it's just making you sick. She's like, will you try this? And when we first got together, I was like, no, meat. And then I started to realize, okay, well, hamburger screws me up. I've got to when it comes to like sausage and stuff like that, I've got to be very careful of the nitrates because it screws me up. My body is telling me we can't do this anymore, and I can't afford to be the stubborn teenager anymore. It's like, no, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna eat a whole pizza and drink two liters. So over the course of our marriage, which about 7 years now, 6 or 7 years, she has gotten me to start converting. The first thing she gave me was a black bean burger, and slowly but surely, we joke all the time because we're called the cultivat of one of us, and slowly but surely I'm coming over to the side of the vegans. I understand that it may not so much be because I think we shouldn't eat animals. It's just a matter of my body feels better when I eat that stuff.
Yeah, and if that's what helps you, go with that theory, right? The funny thing is, people always ask me why or how I look so young. and I'll just say veganism. I don't know if that's entirely the
I'm a
reason, but
vampire.
I think I do look healthier than even when I was vegetarian, to be honest. I feel like I'm looking younger and younger over the last few years, which works to my advantage in many ways, but healthy habits.
Well, see,
Yeah,
also too, you're in the
skincare.
entertainment industry, and when you ask to be famous in the entertainment industry, they swap your blood out so you live forever.
Yeah, exactly. The Illuminati.
Yeah,
We're all secretly a part.
that's fine. It's all right. Somebody's got to be in control of everything, so why not
I just
them?
want the financial benefits. One day.
Right?
The Illuminati benefits.
So I got one more question for you. And it's not so much about your work, but again, about your appearance. Now, is the NASA shirt because you're a space nerd, or just because, you know, you like the shirt?
Kind of both. I've actually been wanting a NASA shirt since I was young. My brother was way more into space than me. I have several siblings, but one of my brothers wanted to go to space camp and all that stuff. He never got the opportunity, but I am a big thrift shopper. And I went into a consignment shop in the Arts District of Las Vegas a couple weeks ago, and I found this shirt like in mint condition, so I could not pass it up. But I've always wanted one.
I fully recommend, if you ever make it down into Arizona, specifically like Tucson area, stop at Savers.
Yeah, that's where I shop. This was not from Savers, but I do shop at Savers down the street.
Absolutely.
Find me there.
Yeah, wonderful. Like, just great deals, especially on their half price days.
Right. I donate to Savers too. I just donate a bunch of stuff, because the funny thing is I'm not one of those people that's like, oh, I can only wear something once or twice. But I am conscious of who I wear certain things around, like, oh, I wore that dress around that person last time. So now when I see them, I can't wear the same thing, because I do tend to wear like the same 5 outfits, if you will. So everything that I have that I end up donating looks still like brand new. So somebody is going to get good use out of it, even if I didn't.
I'm the same way. I've got about 5 shirts and, you know, overshirts and stuff that I'll cycle through. And
you like what you like, you know, the outfit, you can depend on it.
and if anybody ever calls me, and I'll be like, I'm just a main character in a cartoon that they can't afford the proper animation to give me more outfits.
Right. Right. It's well loved.
Right. I have a shirt that I just recently got, because we have a merch store and stuff for the show, and
Yes.
I have a one-off that says "Friendly Neighborhood Cult Leader."
Okay.
And I love wearing it in public, and people are like, "You've worn that shirt for 6 days in a row. Why?" And I was like, "Well, because when I get home, I immediately take it off and change into something else, so it doesn't get sweaty and nasty throughout the day." And the looks in public are priceless.
Hey, there's that, or you could have more than one.
Yeah.
I have several things, like I have the same jeans in just a slightly different wash, like several pairs of them. So it probably looks like I wear the same like 2 pairs all the time. It's just I have so many different pairs of the same colors.
It's their fault for not noticing the subtleties.
Right? Yeah. Did you notice that little fray in the pocket or?
Right.
You're right. It's not
there's
my
a small stain on the left back pocket of these that isn't there on the other pair. So,
you're right. It's the same thing. You could wear something out for like an errand real quick and then like, wear it the next day because you don't wear it very long. However, here in Las Vegas, I don't recommend that in the summertime because we do sweat here. It's a thing.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody, I guess, is sweating right now in the US, but here it's very much a thing for 6 months of the year.
Oh, yeah. Well, again, living in Tucson for 2 years, I understood what hot is finally.
That's right. When I lived in Phoenix, I think I only owned 5 outfits because I was a flight attendant there. And so I was never really there. And everything I owned had to fit into my suitcase. And so I was very strategic in creating kind of a mini capsule wardrobe, if you will. So certain pieces that work with different other pieces, right? They all can form different outfits. That's my goal, is to create a capsule wardrobe. But then I find cute shirts like this NASA one. I just had to get from my childhood dreams and I had to buy it, but it'll be very obvious if I wear this more than once.
Okay. Before we move into the final parts of the interview, the last question I have for you is, so as a writer and as a filmmaker, the whole game is creating stories you want to tell. Mm-hmm. What is one story that you have not gotten to tell yet that you're hoping you get to?
To write about that I haven't written?
Mm-hmm.
That's a good question. There is one, it's not based on anything, really, maybe a little bit. But there's one idea I have started outlining it, but I have not written it, really. It's a film about, and it's very timely with the release of the Elvis film, but it's about a bunch of groupies that follow an Elvis impersonator around the US. Now, the reason that I want to tell that story in particular is it kind of speaks to band culture. And that's something that was a big part of my 20s, and how people get so attached to a certain figure and you can't figure out why. So my Elvis in my film doesn't really look anything like Elvis, but he travels as an Elvis impersonator. So it's kind of like the concept of what draws you to something or someone. And that's the story I want to tell, is because we all have so many different likes and whatnot. People are drawn to comics or whatever, but I'm very much drawn to the band culture, but I needed to tell it in a unique way. So my Elvis groupies story is kind of the one I want to dive into, and just because it's so different from anything else that I write, because I write a lot of things that are very deep and emotional and maybe not always happy. So I kind of wanted to dive into this fun little ridiculous story.
No, that's fair. All right, Shaun, you've made it through every question that I've had so far. I've got a few more questions for you, but first I have to ask you, hey, Shaun, tell me a story.
I knew that was coming, and I did not prepare a story. I always have lots of stories, as you've been able to tell today, but let's see. What can I tell you? An interesting story. Oh, okay. So back in my early 20s, I mean, yesterday.
Yeah, right.
Last year. So I used to attend a lot of live band performances at the Jimmy Kimmel Show. And no reason. I just liked the experience and sometimes the bands. And so I had a very flexible job back then. I would do my day job working for a financial investment firm. And then that was not the life I wanted to live. So after work, I would go check out these live performances. And I would stand in line. And I used to book bands as well. That's something important to note, because on my little belt loop, I wore my backstage passes. Every time I went to Jimmy Kimmel, I just happened to have those on my belt loop. No real reason. It was my aesthetic, right? So when I got there, they would often be like, "Oh, are you with the band?" Yeah. So I would get into the green room. I would get like some prime, front and center kind of seats, or standing room as it was in the studio. And it weirdly spun off a lot of opportunities for me, just kind of faking it until I made it, if you will. So I ended up booking some bands for that show for a period of time. And then I ended up on Craig Ferguson's show, which is no longer, but I ended up getting to do a performance on that show of the Gangnam Style dance. I had never seen it until the day that I had to film, and they're like, "Hey, do this dance with Craig." Okay, cool. So just kind of a little random story, but sometimes just having a certain aesthetic can get you certain places.
Yeah, look the part.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good way to put it. Look the part.
All right, I gotta ask, Craig Ferguson seems like a very nice guy. Is it true?
He is wonderful, and he's hilarious too, but he's so sweet.
Yeah, he seems very, very proper.
Yeah, he seems like it, yes, but he's just genuine. I mean, in my experience, British people just are kind of genuine, and they are who they are. But they are very genuine and nice.
Well, it sounds like there's probably a good number of stories behind that story, but I'll let you keep your secrets.
Yeah, I don't know how that one came to me, but you said tell a story. I had to quick think on my feet.
All right. Regular interview, tell me a story is done. We're ready to move into interview roulette. Are you ready?
I'm ready. I'm excited.
Okay, so before we got started, I had you pick 5 numbers, and these are the questions that correspond to the numbers you pick. So if you don't like the question, it's your fault.
That's right. I can take accountability. I'm not afraid.
Your first question is Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts, and why?
Dunkin' Donuts, hands down. Starbucks, I love their cups, but their coffee tastes burnt to me. And I will go there on occasion if there's money in the Starbucks account. But Dunkin' Donuts, they always have oat milk. Can't say that about Starbucks. They're out oftentimes. And also, what else do I like about Dunkin'? I just like their colors. I like the hot pink and the orange.
The really pretty sign.
Yes. I love some branding.
Flame.
I love some pretty branding, but I also realized recently they do sell tumblers, so I may have to convert. But we do not have Dunkin' Donuts in too many places here in Las Vegas.
No, it'd be Krispy Kreme, right?
No, we don't. Starbucks is the chain here, unfortunately. But I like to patron, smaller coffee shops. That's my thing. That's what I do here. But Dunkin', we only have in like Virgin hotels and like 2 or 3 other places. And the 2 or 3 other places, because I love the Virgin one, they never have a medium-sized cup. They're always out of medium cups. So if I try to order a medium, they're like, yeah, we only have small or large. Well, what if I wanted more than a small, but not quite a large? Or like, give me 2 smalls, but they don't do that there. They'll do that other places. But to be fair, I still like Dunkin' because they're not as prevalent here.
Yeah. What is the most important lesson you have learned in life?
I think
so far.
Yeah, I think when you have a dream or a goal about something, I think it's important to make it happen. I have had my filmmaking dreams since I was very young, and I didn't think they were possible because people told me they were not, and people still tell me they're not as a female in the industry. Just because other people think it's not possible doesn't mean that it isn't. And I think it's important to always stick to your convictions, and what you can do, your abilities. So I think it's important to carry it through. Don't listen to other people because they have their own experience. And oftentimes the most critical people are the ones that aren't doing anything. Maybe they've put their dreams on the shelf and didn't reach them. So no matter what other people say, just keep going.
That's fair. I am very much a big proponent for perseverance. In fact, my one co-host, he tells everyone, he's like, I've got a song in my head for everybody. Everybody has their own theme song. And I looked at him after he said that, and I was like, I bet you're not going to tell me mine, are you? And he's like, no, I'll tell you if you really want to know. And I was like, well, morbid curiosity has always gotten the better of me. What is my song? And it is High Hopes.
That song by Fall Out Boy?
No.
Because I was like, that's kind of ridiculous, but okay.
No. Well, I mean, they may have covered it. No, everyone thinks that silly old ant can't move that rubber tree plant. Everyone knows an ant can't, but he's got high hopes. He's got high hopes.
Okay. I have not heard that in a while.
Yeah. Well, my co-host is older, but like when he said that, I was like, oh shit, that is me. That is so me. Because you got to realize I've been doing this for 15 years, and I have made things happen that I shouldn't have been able to make happen. Mm-hmm. Just through sheer perseverance and will.
Same.
And so like he told me that, and I was like, huh. And he's like, I don't mean it as an insult. I was like, no, I get it. I'm just gobsmacked with how accurate that is.
That's funny. If you've only known me a short period of time, but what would your theme song be for me just based on what you know?
Oh, I don't know. That's not my thing.
I think you can come up with one. Maybe I'll ask you later.
Yeah, it's not my thing. That's my co-host thing. It's so everyone has those weird idiosyncratic things that they do that they maybe nobody else is aware of. And when he told me that, I was like, huh. So now, like, every time we're like out in public or we're hanging out together with other people, I always want to look over and be like, what's their theme song?
I like to look at people in public and like try to think of their backstories or maybe what they're going through that day. So maybe that's the psychology part of my being, but I like to do that, and I feel like everybody is kind of fascinating.
Well, you're also a storyteller, so
yeah, true.
I mean, I used to do that too. I suffered from really bad ADHD when I was a kid, and I realized that I could manage it on my own somewhat by going to the mall in my local city, and I would put like, because every mall had a fountain for some reason, like just right in the middle of it in our area. Like it didn't matter if you went to your mall or a mall 2 cities over, they had a fountain in the middle of it for some damn reason. And so I would sit with the fountain to my back and have that loud white noise. And I would then try to listen to conversations of people going by, trying to isolate and learn to take in all of that sensory data and then manage it in a wise fashion.
Oh, that's interesting. I have ADHD, so newly diagnosed, but I'm going, I like that. I like that. I can see how that could work.
Yeah, and it helps because like now I have what I call functioning ADHD, which allows me to multitask like a son of a bitch. But the crash is real.
Right. Right. Yeah, some days you don't want to do anything, but then you feel bad because you're not productive. Are you that kind of person?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't do well with idle time.
Same.
What do you think is totally inappropriate but is commonly seen in today's society?
I think is inappropriate.
Mm-hmm.
Why did I pick that number? Gosh, I think I don't want to single out particular groups, but I think it's inappropriate to, well, let's take a real example. So say on Facebook, for example, that's a platform that's not my favorite for this reason, but I think it's inappropriate for people to kind of rain on someone's parade. Right. So somebody's really happy about something, and then somebody has to come in with maybe their experience, like, oh, but when I experienced this, like it wasn't, like that's not necessary. I think it's completely inappropriate. If people want to have their happiness, let them have their happiness. Why does everything always have to be negative? We always have to turn it into something negative, and some people can't help themselves.
Let people enjoy things.
You let people enjoy things. That's right.
What famous person's memoir would you love to read that you haven't?
Oh, that I haven't. Oh gosh. I know one I want to reread. I was thinking about last night, but
I threw in that you haven't at the end because that's not actually part of the question, but I assumed, being that you are someone who enjoys psychology and a writer and a filmmaker, that reading, and especially like people's memoirs, getting into the nitty-gritty of people, is something that you're already doing. So what's one that you haven't read that you want to? It might not even be written yet.
I am the worst when it comes to reading. I'll be honest, I'm more of a book collector. I will start like 5 different ones at a time and never finish them. Probably the ADHD part. But I do love autobiographies and biographies. And I was thinking the other day about one. It's escaping me now. I do still kind of, I don't know that I want this to be my answer though.
Well, okay, let me refine the question just a little bit for you.
Yes, please.
Who is one person who you don't know a lot about, famous person, that you would like to know more about, like to know their story, their memoir?
Oh gosh.
Past, present, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, because I probably read all of the ones I really wanted to. But I would say I have not read, but I would like to, Viola Davis's, because I think she has some interesting stories to tell. You can even tell in her acting, she has been through some things. Mm-hmm. And so that's the one I was trying to think of from the other day. I really want to read hers, but I have not yet. I think she's a very dynamic woman. She's doing amazing things in her career. So I kind of want to know the woman behind the woman.
Fair enough. All right. One final interview roulette question. What terrible movie do you love?
All the movies I love are not terrible. I have no guilty pleasures. I'm not ashamed. I really like, and maybe it would be ridiculous to some people if they watched it today, but I really like Clueless a lot. And it's not a world I could relate to at all. I don't know why that came to my head, but I think of that movie, I relate to Brittany Murphy's character the most because she's not of that world either. But I
Wasn't
guess,
wasn't Clueless a Shakespeare story? Wasn't
yeah,
it like Taming of the Shrew or
Taming
something
of the
like that?
Shrew. Yeah, it was based on Taming of the Shrew, but like a modern retelling. And I often don't like those, although I do love 10 Things I Hate About You as well. But I'm not ashamed of either of
No,
those.
both solid choices.
Yeah, absolutely. And for many reasons. I mean, I think Clueless, that you have a female director and writer behind that, which I love because that ended up being a really big film and still a cult classic today. And I still love Alicia Silverstone and follow her on social media. But I like everybody involved with that project. They're still all working today. Paul Rudd is still working today. Bretton
Paul Rudd
Meyer.
looks exactly like he did in that movie.
Yeah, right.
So.
Exactly. Yeah. So I love that they weren't just a flash in the pan in that film. Everybody still has a successful career today. And I think that's awesome.
Yeah. One of my favorite, I love Paul Rudd as an actor, mind you, and like as a person. I more so love the fact that he trolls Conan on a regular basis.
I was just watching a YouTube of one of those the other day.
And the worst part is that movie that he trolls Conan with, one of my favorite movies.
Wait, what is the movie?
Mac and Me. It does not matter what project Paul Rudd is on Conan's show to talk about. He could be promoting Marvel, he could be promoting some romance movie that he's in or something like that.
Yeah,
It does not
right.
movie. He shows the same clip from Mac and Me every single time.
That's right. That's a great movie too. You're right. It'll be like he's there to promote Ant-Man and they're like, let's go to the clip and then
it's the kid falling off in the wheelchair.
He's consistent. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely love it. And like I said, I love that movie. Movies were always a big part of my life. Growing up, my mother was big into movies, and my grandmother and my great grandmother. So like the time that I spent, as a kid interacting with all three of the matriarchal members of my family had to do with films. So I got to see a lot of stuff growing up, and today I'm a huge movie buff. So it's a pure joy being able to speak to people like yourself who are actually, getting their hands dirty and making the art that we get to consume.
Yeah, it's not an easy journey. I'll tell you that. It is not easy at all. Right now, I am in the thick of the producing side of things. Honestly, I don't want to be a producer long term. I'll put it out there. It's a hard job. And everybody likes to say they're a producer. But if you're not a producer that's actually producing things, you're not making things happen, then in my opinion, you're not really a producer. You're just slapping your name on there. But it's a very hard job. And I don't envy actual active producers because good on them for learning that side of things. It's not my forte. I like to create.
I'm right there with you. I would much rather create and edit than have to put all the pieces together to make sure I can do the thing I need to do.
Mm-hmm. And props to editors too, real heroes. I don't enjoy that job either, but I did it on You Don't Deserve This. I did edit the film because I think it's also important as a creator to learn everybody else's jobs just enough so you understand and can relate to what they go through when they have an issue. So you're not that like impatient director that's like, why is sound taking so long? If you actually throw yourself in there and work sound, like it's not easy. I don't know how to do lighting appropriately either in some cases, so I'm learning with my selfies. That's my way of practicing. But yeah, it's an art and it's a skill that not everybody has.
It also helps too to have that foundation that when there is an issue that they need to discuss with you, you're not just sitting there looking like a deer in headlights like I have no idea what he's saying.
Yeah, and I became maybe a bit ambitious with this project in trying to take on all the roles, but that was half of the point in me doing it, was I wanted to, dive into color correcting. I still ended up having a friend come in and show me certain things because that's not my area of expertise. I was trying to learn on my own. And editing is actually one of the first things that I was involved with. I learned how to master editing back in high school. We had some film classes in high school, which is great. And then college, I have a film degree as well. And editors are true heroes because you're sitting in the dark with all the footage and there's so many choices and you have to make it seamless and you have to make it tell the story appropriately. So I don't envy them at all. I feel like directing is enough of that part of the puzzle.
All right, Shaun, you've made it through all parts of the interview. I want to thank you for joining me and sitting down and talking with me.
Yeah, I had a great time, just like chatting with old friends.
That's exactly what I told you it would be.
Love it.